All right, the Bucks. It is Talking Buccaneers with me, Fumane, and I do have some questions today. Not so much the answers. I have some questions in mind, which I thought, let me come on this platform and ask them. Hopefully you guys have got the answers to them, but most importantly, Orlando Pirates will have answers to those questions. Football is back, which means that, the master chef, Jose Rivero, must cook. And I'm thinking about whether or not the pots are ready. The most important pot, the meat pot, which is the midfield of Orlando Pirates, is something I'm thinking, is that ready? Is it ready for him to pour in the ingredients and start cooking from there? And this is what I want to talk about. I mean, there's a lot of other things which I will be touching on actually in this episode, just in and around the team. But I think the crux of it is I'm still thinking about the midfield situation, which let's figure it out together as I sort of bring some of the concerns and some of the thoughts and some of the thinking that I've been thinking about and some of the questions that I do have right now. Before I get into actually the episode, I want to lay something as a groundwork, which is to say that today I think is the 30th of July. I'm not in high school anymore, so I barely write the date. I think it's the 30th of July, time of recording, which means that there's still more than a month. In fact, a month and 3 weeks still left of the transfer window. We know that the transfer window in the PSL, South African football, is going to close on the 20th of September, which is to say, and the reason I say that is that, there's no reason to panic, rather. There's no reason to panic as yet, because we know Orlando Pirates, how many great signings have we made last day of the window, or maybe last week, or anything like that, right? So there's a lot of business we've seen in past years where we've signed people like Kemid Erasmus very late in the window, missed a sizable, all of preseason actually. We've seen that last season with, a lot of transfer business where, the funny one, which actually is gonna be very much topical in today's episode, or is relevant, that kind of business that Orlando Pirates did last season, where we renewed the contract of Ben Mutwari at the start of the window, and then at the end of the window, we then shipped him out and sold him, which, I'm thinking, is it possible we see something like that this season again, as, the club, the head coach is trying to figure out, again, his pots for the season to be able to cook. And so, where I do want to start is that, And if you've watched, the episode that we dropped on Monday, by the way, for those of you that have been watching Talking Buccaneers, if this is not your first time, and you've been watching for quite a while, I have done these alone, but every Monday from now, latest Tuesday, we are going to be doing a weekly podcast with a few other Buccaneers, because I just think the conversation is richer when there's all of us. So if you watch the previous one and the one before that, the previous episode of Talking Buccaneers, you might have seen that there were other people. We've now done 3 episodes, and that's something please do expect going forward for those of you that have, thankfully, from my side, subscribed to this channel, and I appreciate it really. But in the last episode I spoke about this. It's something that I'm asking to say, we released, obviously, at the end of the season, end of last season, beginning of sort of coming into the season, we released I beg your pardon, Thabang Munari was a vital part of the squad for 4 or so years at Orlando Pirates. He was at the heart of that, Orlando Pirates midfielder. But something I've spoken about for some time now, and sort of just disagreeing with a lot of people about, is Orlando Pirates having to brutally, sever relationships with players for the sake of results. And I know we love our club, and one of the other buzzwords that you hear a lot at Orlando Pirates, especially the head coach is the steward of it, is the idea of the group, right? He talks a lot about the group, and you can tell that some players at Orlando Pirates are kept in the environment because the head coach, his technical team, maybe even that comes from, above him, is this idea of keeping a crop of players together because of the chemistry, maybe the peace in the dressing room, and those things are a part of football. They are the the things that you can't really quantify, but they contribute to why a team is successful. And we know that those things are there. And the London Pirates, it seems, again, we talk a lot, or hear a lot actually, about the word group. And this is something they emphasize about keeping certain personalities, certain characters at the club for just just a good vibe in the club, right? And at times that has seen that some players have, based on their performance on the pitch, have stayed longer than they've had to. And you put your ear in the streets, especially the Twitter streets and all that kind of thing. You do sense a bit of dissatisfaction with certain players at Orlando Pirates. And I've called for it, end of last season, to say we've got a lot of guys who are in their 30s, mid-30s, some going for 40, some of them. For Orlando Pirates to maybe think about letting go of those players, selling them, moving them on, appreciating what they've done, but moving them on for the sake of, to compete. What we've seen is Munari is the one who, if I can say, has been the victim of that kind of brutality that Orlando Pirates has sort of taken. He's the one that was at the receiving end of that. Fortune Makaringa is another one. Munari has now moved on. I believe he'll be playing at Sekhukhune. Fortune Makaringa is the one. He's going to be playing at Cape Town City. And we then, renewed the contract of Makehleni Makaula, Sipho Shane's best friend. We renewed him, and I wonder if that has something to do with the fact, again, this group idea of, keeping those dynamics, not affecting them too much by upsetting too much of the friendships, the friend groups, all of that stuff that's working for Pirates. With the brotherhood that's going on there, you see with Shane and Makaula, how much that really boosts Shane is something that we really can't quantify, right? But the people working in the club will know better than us with regards to those things. But I can say, and it pains me to say, that Makehleni Makaula, amazing guy, amazing warrior, amazing personality. But, something gave it away for me when I listened to Talent Mbata speak on the radio. I think it was Onandile Ncube or maybe even Marawa. I can't quite remember where it was. And he spoke about the fact that he has to run more in midfield because he's the younger one of the two with Makehleni Makaula, which, it sounded great. It sounded like, a very humble, respectful thing from Talente towards Makehleni, respecting his elder teammate, and exposing a bit of the unity between the guys. But it also just told me about, are we now overcompensating to have Makaula on the pitch where Talente has to now run more? Whereas if you're getting him a fit partner who's very good, then he's focusing on what he has to do, and the partner can do what he does, and it's sort of this shared responsibility. No one has to carry water for the other person. By the way, if it's noisy, I'm in Soweto, I'm in Orlando, so I've got neighbors, very noisy neighbors. I think they might support Kaizer Chiefs. So that sort of thing for me has led me to think, should we have released Makehleni Makaula? It's a question. I'm not going to answer that. I'm going to leave it to you guys to think about. But it is something that I've been thinking about. And is it possible that we might see another one of those where they renewed him, end of the window, and then later on, maybe after a bit of assessments, maybe will we see something like what we saw last season with Ben Mutwari being signed, extended his contract when it came to an end last season, and then after being renewed, and then he got shipped out again to Amazon. Whether that was a financial decision so that they don't lose him for free, I'm not sure about these things, but it is possible we might see something like that. Because something I'm really thinking about is that the level at Orlando Pirates, whether or not it has gone up in terms of the quality of that midfield, is something that's really, really still a question. Why I say that is that, you've got the main guys who are playing in that midfield. Makehleni Makaula, he's a year older. Whether or not that means his quality has decreased is another question. Tim is a year older than he was last year, into his 30s as well. Whether or not he's improved or the level is still the same is another question, or has gone down. It's another question, right? Talent Mbata, I think we can agree that his quality has gone up. Certainly his confidence will have gone up. You know, amazing displays in pre-season showing the amount of confidence that he's got against very, very good midfielders in Spain. And so we might agree that, you know, his level has gone up in that midfield. And so, you know, it then remains to say, for the level of Orlando Pirates to have gone up in that midfield is now dependent on whether or not Rasibotja is an improvement in that midfield. It's dependent on whether or not Baloni has stepped up or Goodman Mosele has stepped up. Those are my questions, and I'm asking myself that has that level gone up of the midfield based on these three players that I've spoken about, Siphelelo Baloni, Goodman Mosele, and Selailo Rasibotja. And if no, then Orlando Pirates will have to say, are we happy with the level remaining the same, even though we want to challenge this season, right? And I think they would say that they want the level to go up, of course. They want for us to improve, because obviously the level that we have and have been has landed at second points with 23 points, trailing to the winner of the league last year. And so, I mean, if we want to be going into Africa, which is another level up, you have to improve. And that's a lot of weight for Selailo Rasibotja. And is he the guy? Again, for me, I'm going to leave this as a question, because one of the other things, what you kind of put yourself at, what would I say, at the mercy of when you do something like this, where you put the camera and then you speak and a lot of people listen. Certainly, like thousands of people have been getting 1,000 views, which thank you if you're watching. But 1,000 people getting to criticize some of the things that you say. You put yourself at the mercy of that, because we're all wrong about things sometimes, right? We make statements and we get them wrong sometimes. And I can sit here and say, I don't think Selailo Rasibotja is the guy based on what I've seen in pre-season. And I could be wrong. He could turn out to be fantastic. Or I could base my judgment on what I've seen of him in SuperSport United, School of Excellence, and say he's the guy, and then the level is just too much for him at Orlando Pirates. And, you know, I don't have time for people who have sympathy for themselves when they get things wrong. But when we get these things wrong, us being the people who put cameras in front of us and say these things to the public, and then they hammer us to say, hey, I'm going to repost or requote what you said. Remember you said this. And it's like, I mean, you get things wrong sometimes. And hopefully you will have done you know, an analysis before you put out the statement, but even then you could still get things wrong. And so I'm saying all of this to say that, I mean, I can be bold and come out and say, Selailo Rasibotja, I don't think he's the guy to actually take the level of Orlando Pirates to winning the league, considering the fact that, you know, he wasn't playing so much at SuperSport United. I mean, I'm not doubting his talent or whatever. I think he's very talented, actually, with the things I've seen of him, the very little I've seen of him. And I can admit that he's not someone I watch as much as I do Talent Mbata, as much as I do Tim, as much as I do Ndlondlo, whom these guys I can actually, you know, make a bold statement and say, I don't think there's more there. I've seen a lot of him. But with him, I've seen things there, here and there. I've seen stuff that I think could be useful for Orlando Pirates. But I've also now seen, having watched him in pre-season, to say, you know, that was a lesser pressure environment, or maybe it was a pressure environment, you know, playing away and knowing that these preseason games are going to be televised. Maybe it was a lot of pressure. But now I haven't gone out of that with confidence to say the level has gone up at Orlando Pirates. The same way I did when I saw Saleng play the first time on the right wing for Orlando Pirates. Like the same way I felt when I saw Libito play at right back for Orlando Pirates for the first time, when I saw Talent Mbata play at central midfield for Orlando Pirates for the first time, when I saw Relebogile Mofokeng don the first team jersey for the first time. You know, these guys, even though I wasn't sure, but I had some confidence about, I think they're going to be fantastic for us with more time, with development and all of that stuff. And I don't feel like that yet about, you know, Selailo Rasibotja. And for me, I'm asking you, has the level gone up with him? It's a question. I think it's a question that Orlando Pirates is going to have to think about. They're going to have to think about whether Mosele's level is going to take us up a notch. They're going to have to think about whether Baloni has suddenly gotten to a level where he's going to take the level up of that midfield, from where it was last season with Makehleni and Talente, with Tim and Talente, with Munari and Ndlondlo at a point and whatnot. That level, the quality level, the floor, has it gone up based on what Orlando Pirates have seen so far of these three guys that I've mentioned? But what I want to do actually, what I want to get into today after such a long time of speaking is, what about Ndlondlo? Because I think there's a lot of conversation that's going on around Ndlondlo, and rightfully so. And another one whom I'm going to throw into the mix because he sort of falls into the same bracket is Lesedi Kapinga. That's another one. I would even throw Innocent Maela into that mix. And for all of them, I have different things kind of to say about all of them. And I'm going to start with Ndlondlo. And, what you hear from Orlando Pirates fans who are frustrated with the fact that, Ndlondlo came in as a marquee who was going to, improve that Orlando Pirates team in some way. He's failed to sort of put his foot down as, I'm going to be the number 10 of Orlando Pirates, which is what he came in to do initially. And so one might say, some people have argued that he's been relegated to becoming a 6 because obviously something, people will disagree about, but I will come out swinging and say, you have more time playing at 6 than you do at 10. At 6, you've got a lot of the game ahead of you. And you do in build-up phase now and again have to have, the game behind you and have, those side mirrors and all of that to be able to progress the play, receive and turn and progress play, right? But however, you are in a at best, or at most rather, you have sort of 4 players around you or 3 players around you, that sort of thing. Whereas when you're playing as a 10, you've got 2 lines of 4. And you're in between those places, and I mean, people are coming at you with speed, trying to win the ball back. And so some have said that's the reason Ndlondlo has been relegated to becoming a 6, is because, he's not someone who's in those tight spaces in the number 10, quite how you see Dlamini will receive with finesse, how you see Maswanganyi can receive in those tight pockets and create space for himself and be able to create play for Orlando Pirates, create scoring opportunities. And people have said Ndlondlo's failed, and so he's now become a 6. And you thought, okay, this is where at least we're going to see him erupt, because this is a number 10 who's used to being on the ball so much, and in that position his qualities should show. But a lot of Pirates fans are now frustrated to say he's actually even losing the ball more in that position. And so some people have called for the X to just hit Ndlondlo and release him and be brutal and go find someone new, right? And what I want to say about that is actually want to ask a question to say, is there no shout to say that, look, if you have Talente Mbata, who I think at the moment is probably the most agreed upon midfielder to be at the heart of it for Orlando Pirates. I think the fans, there probably will be a consensus. I haven't done that research, but there probably will be the most consensus among Orlando Pirates fans to say he's the one, he's the first name in those 2 number 6 positions. And who partners him? I know there's going to be a lot of conversation and debates there. Some are going to say we have to go out and get, someone. Some will say, no, we can play Tim. Tim is the one who can play with him. Some will actually say, no, Makala is the one who should play with him. I know some will say Baloni is the one who should play with him. And there's pockets who will say, no, Musela is the guy who should actually go and play with him, right? And I'm saying all of these names, some will maybe even say Ndlondlo should play with Talente Mbata in the heart of that midfield. But I want to ask the question and pose the question that, is Ndlondlo the one who should be released if Orlando Pirates maybe wants to free up a body right now? Let me paint a scenario. If Orlando Pirates is thinking of releasing a body in that midfield, should Ndlondlo be the first name? Let's say they want to free up a space to go and get that Jaden Adams, or to go and get that I don't know, Bongani Zungu, whoever you guys, I know there's a lot of people, there's a lot of names, a lot of people have come up with who they think can help us in that midfield. I've said Jaden Adams for me is the guy. I think, you can watch, there's a video I've done on this channel and I've spoken about Jaden Adams. I think he's formidable, dynamic, strong, very good on the ball. And I think he's still got a lot to develop. I think just playing at Stellenbosch and the amount of development he's made over the last few years and how he's actually grown even to become a man and put on some meat in terms of his game, he's stronger, all of that stuff. I think he's the guy. I think if you have talent and Jaden in that midfield, that's formidable. That was my name. I know some have said, let's go for Zungu. We can maybe use him for a year while we look for someone else, but he's going to give us something in that year. I've said, but it's getting us back to the problem of constantly having to keep rebuilding that midfield, because you're certainly going to have to release Zungu next year or the following year or whatever. But it's, again, you have to release Makehleni, you then have to release Zungu. Tim will be older. Ndlondlo probably now will start being 30 and people will start calling for him to leave as well. And so why not go for someone who's going to be in that midfield mainstay alongside Talente? And hence I've landed on Jaden Adams for that reason. Some have said Jamie Webber. There's a shout for Jamie Webber from Skukune to come in that midfield, and other names, right? But I'm asking the question that if you want to free up a space in the Orlando Pirates midfield for that kind of player, whoever you have in mind, is Ndlondlo really the guy to release? Or is there a shout to say that Makehleni maybe is the one who Orlando Pirates should have thought of releasing? Because I don't think Ndaba Iteto and Ndlondlo, and I can say this boldly to you guys, is that if ahead of Ndlondlo there's whoever we get as a marquee signing, there's Silailo Rasebocha and someone else, to have Ndlondlo as the fourth option as Orlando Pirates, worst scenario, we have 5 or so injured players and Ndlondlo has to play. Is it really that bad to have Ndlondlo on the squad of Orlando Pirates? And this is the question I'm asking. I'm asking because I think that, yes, Orlando Pirates can be brutal and go and release him. But is he the one that people should be calling for, or is that being driven by a lot of frustrations to say there was a lot of expectation on him? I think Ndlondlo is a fantastic player, by the way. I think he is. I think he loses his head at times. I think there's a lot happening. With all due respect, I love Ndlondlo. I love hearing him speak. I respect him, obviously, as a human and all of that stuff. But I do think that he loses his head sometimes in a game where I think he's got a crowd in his head and he wants to do a Hollywood kind of moment where he could have kept it simple. Whether it be him turning or him trying to dwell on the ball and things of that nature, you can tell he hasn't thought about his next move before the game, before the ball, comes to him, which you can tell there's a lot happening in his head, which is not to anticipate the game, to read the game, to dictate actually the game, which is what we want from him, right? But I do think that he's not the worst player actually at Orlando Pirates. He's very good in Ndlondlo. When he's on it, I think he's very good. When he's actually making the right decisions, I think he can get in the box. He can do those things that we're loving a bit of Talente for, which is crashing the box, arriving late. I think Ndlondlo's got that in his lock. I think he's quite fit, actually, quite strong even for his size. I know he gets dispossessed at times. I don't think it's because of his strength. I think he's actually very good at protecting the ball with his low center of gravity. I think it's just a thing of not anticipating it. The ball just gets nicked off him. It's not that he gets bullied off of it. And so he's very strong. I think he does have a pass on him when he's actually thought about things and he's made space for himself and he's not going for Hollywood. He does actually have a pass. He's got a progressive pass on him. He's got a progressive carry on him. He can actually carry the ball and he's got a shot on him. And I think if you have Ndlondlo at Orlando Pirates as your fourth midfielder, then you've actually got a very good midfield. As someone who's the fourth option, I think you've got a very good squad depth. It's when Ndlondlo is the starter that I think is an issue. But for that reason, then I think Orlando Pirates has to think about, is Baloni better than Ndlondlo? Is Goodman Musele better than Ndlondlo? Is because if we're saying they're not, and we're saying Ndlondlo must go, then we have to release Baloni, we have to release Musele, and all of that, right? And so that's the case I want to ask, and actually ask you guys questions. And I think Orlando Pirates is thinking like that, to say, hey, Who can, if we want to go get a better squad option, who can we get who will come into Orlando Pirates and be a squad player and be happy for that? Who's better than Ndlondlo in the league? There's very few. Whoever you're going to get who's great is probably coming in to be first name, but Ndlondlo is already at Pirates. I think he's going to be happy for a year maybe as a squad player, and then maybe eventually think he wants to go and play, right? And I'm just saying that he's not so bad to have around the place. I'm going on for too long. I wasn't hoping for this episode to be this long, but let me wrap it with, and then there's obviously Kapinga and Maela, who I also made a mention of. And what I want to say about Kapinga is, with him, again, actually read a comment this morning on one of the videos saying that, the criticism that's aimed at Kapinga is unfair. In fact, the person called it an attack, that we attack Kapinga. And to be honest, I want to say that that's unfair on us, people who have criticized. I mean, well, I can speak for myself. I think all the criticism that has been aimed at Kapinga has actually been very fair. I think, in fact, every time that you will hear people speak of Kapinga, they will sort of precede whatever criticism they want to aim at him with the fact that he's a very good player. So you'll hear something along the lines of, Kapinga was very good at Black Leopards. I wonder why he's not performing in Orlando Pirates. Maybe it's because he's reached his 30s and he's reached his ceiling, and so he has nothing to offer for us. Therefore, I think he should go. Or he was doing well at Kosafa, but he's not reached those heights at Orlando Pirates. And I think people have seen and have recognized that the quality of Kapinga. They've just thought maybe, is it possible that's the reason why? Because another thing we need to think about, guys, is that Sundowns has said, Kapinga is not good enough for us, we're going to release him. Is it possible that Orlando Pirates has seen the same thing? Is it possible that Kapinga is a moment's player and is not someone who can actually, consistently perform? Because there are those players. Some people, people like, for those of you who will know, people like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Man United have made a reputation for themselves as impact players, like impact subs. They do well when given those 20 minutes, but I'm not saying that about Solskjaer, but some players, when you give them the 90, they don't perform. They just don't, right? It's a different ball game when you're starting the game than when you are outside and are coming in after reading it, when people have tired and all of that stuff, and you are coming in with a bit of energy to reinvigorate your team and rejuvenate them or re-energize them, whatever the word is. And so, for that reason, I think there's been a lot, and people have said, he's not gotten a chance. And I'm asking the question that, why does any player deserve a chance to play games consecutively even? People have said, give him 5 games in a row. And I'm asking, what has he done to warrant that? And for me, people have gone off reputation and said, because Kapinga, we've seen him as like, give him 5 games in a row. It's like, well, don't you think that the head coach has seen something in training that hasn't warranted the head coach to give him 5 games in a row? And don't you think that with the opportunities that he's got, because again, people have gotten chances and grabbed them. You think about Saleng, he's got 1 game versus Mamelodi Sundowns, he grabbed it. You saw Mufokeng do the same thing. You see Talented do the same thing. You see, again, Lebito do the same thing at right back. And maybe it's upon, Kapinga to do the same when he gets those 10 minutes, when he gets that 1 game. He got some games in Africa last season. I remember against Jwaneng, he played away for us, and he's gotten even other games. I remember a game against Stellenbosch, he played the MTN8 second leg where we lost 1-0 at Orlando Stadium, but qualified because we'd won at the Denny Craven, I think that's the name of the stadium that they were playing in. But he got that chance, Kapinga. He came on and he's failed to impact the game. And it's like, we're going to be impatient with you, man, especially if you're not 19. If you're 29 and not 19 and you're failing to impact, it's like, dude, we could be giving those minutes to Mohaungot or Muleleki, because with them, those 10 minutes are going to be useful for their development. They're going to learn the men's game and they're going to improve. But if we're going to be investing these 45 minutes, these 90 minutes when starters are not available, they're injured, and we give Kapinga and he's not giving us anything. He's actually giving us the same output as we would get if we had Nkotha. Why not give them to Nkotha? Because Nkotha is going to grow by the game. You know what I'm saying? And so the same thing again about Maela, though with him I think it's a different case. With him we know that he's no longer the same. He's definitely a bit down the pecking order in terms of quality at left back and just overall at Orlando Pirates. But again, something that's not quantifiable is how important is a figurehead at Orlando Pirates, someone who's the captain and stuff like that. And so people have said he must go, and I think that's been harsh because club captain, you don't just say go, right? Again, if you're trying to, you had a bit of momentum last season, you're going into the next season, you want to build on that. It's a different case to when Jailer got released. I mean, Orlando Pirates was an absolute shambles, and there was a whole restructuring of the club, whereas people have said, oh, we've released the captain before, and it's like the circumstances aren't the same. We're trying to build on what was good last season, and we're trying to build on that and add a few pieces, which is going to, and so you don't want to upset too much of the dynamics, and the way people have called for release that player, even release the club captain, I think has been a bit, ignorant at best, but really, yeah, maybe harsh at best, but ignorant at worst. That's what I'm trying to say. I think people sometimes at worst have been ignorant about those things to say, look, guys, you can't just football is played by humans. And the aspect that they're happy, things are going well in the dressing room, in the club, all of that stuff, it matters actually on the pitch. They're not robots, these people who are programmed to give performances. They're people whose performances are motivated or influenced by dynamics around them. And so you just release a club captain, you release all of these, you release Makhehleni Mokolo, you release Munari, and you've then upset the team. Where it's like we're starting over, building a new team. And I don't think it's wise from us. And yeah, for that reason, that's why I think, different circumstances around these players, and we need to think about those things. But yeah, let me leave it here. What do you think? Leave it in the comment section. Up the mighty Bucks. Cheers. Listen, hit that subscribe button. Do it right now. I demand it. And I thank you for it, for your compliance.